Today I want to talk to you about a rod from the Beastmaster Commercial range, and I tell you what a rod. It's the 12-foot version and I've been using it for a multitude of users. I've been using it on the River Tees braid fishing when I've been fishing for small skimmer bream. I've been using it on the River Trent. I've been using it at Barston Lakes where I'm throwing a method feeder 70-80 metres. And today is a bit of a mix between fishing a commercial and a natural water. Today I'm throwing a method feeder 70-80 metres, but I'm fishing for big double figure bream. That's my target. Let's see whether we can actually catch one. But this rod ticks all the boxes I look for when it comes to this kind of situation. For example, I'm throwing a 35 gram method feeder today, and I'd say when that's loaded up, that's 70 grams. Now the casting weight, the full capacity casting weight of this particular rod is 90 grams. But because the rod is made of HPC carbon, which is high pressure carbon, it's quite a thin blank, but very, very powerful near the butt. So that means when I want to compress the rod to its maximum to get a really good long distance cast, the carbon and the blank allows me to do so with ease. Along with the help of big guided runners, as you can see, and all the way down the rod, that means there's less friction as the line is going through the runners as you go to cast. So that aids your casting no end, and I reckon it, just the size of the runners alone puts an extra distance on your cast and makes your cast far easier. Now this actual rod comes with 3 tips, and I'm using the medium tip. Now that is what you call a bream. Absolutely fantastic. Well, that's what we've come here for, to catch a lovely bream like that. What a fantastic fish. 12 pounds, 6 ounces. What a fantastic fish. I think it's time we ought to put him back now. Let's talk about the business end, what I'm using today. And it's not just for today's venue. If I'm going to a lake where I'm fishing for carp, bream, F1s, and I'm throwing at a distance, the feeder setup that you use is quite important, especially with a method feeder. Because I'm on an open water lake, I want to put quite a bit of bait into my swim because I'm targeting big bream, which, as we all know, they will hoover up quite a lot of bait quickly. I'm using quite a large method feeder. This particular method feeder is 35 gram in weight, and it's the biggest that they do. Coupled with a 4-inch hook length, which is Shimano Silk Shot Aspire. 018, quite a strong line as well, to a 14-eyed hook. And what I've done is, I've twizzled up my line, as you can see there, and that strengthens the line in the area that might get a bit of damage from casting or debris on the bottom. It just makes the rig more durable. Also, by the bead actually going inside the feeder there, although it's a free running setup, which means if I was unlucky enough to crack my feeder off and a fish takes my bait, it's not swimming around with the feeder, so it's completely fish friendly. But by having it twizzled up there and the bead actually going inside the feeder means when the fish is feeding and it takes your hook bait, and especially in today because on the bottom there's an awful lot of weed, so I'm actually using a popped up piece of corn, which means my hook bait is more visible around the feed and increases the chance as a result of a fish actually picking up my hook bait first. And by the bead being actually inside the feeder, what you'll actually find is it causes a bit of a semi-bolt rig, and then when the fish runs off, the feeder comes away from the fish, which is quite important, and that reduces the amount of hook pulls because the feeder's always away from the actual fish. So quite a simple setup, but very, very effective as well. Right, I want to talk about the mix what I'm using today around the feeder, which I think is quite important. As I've explained, I'm fishing for bream today, so I want a bit of both. I want the ground bait and I want the particle bait inside the ground bait to hold the fish once they arrive in the swim. And for that reason, today I'm using green swim stim, fish meal ground bait with swim stim original, amino original. And these two mixed together are absolutely fantastic, fantastic ground baits, work really well. And I try to get the colour of the ground bait more or less the same as the environment, and because I've explained there's an awful lot of weed on the bottom which is green, this blends in quite well with the weed. Most people would think they want to use a bait that would kind of like a bit of a contrast bait, you know, to stand out, maybe a red ground bait, but I'm a firm believer that it's always a good idea to use a colour that is more like a camouflage to the fish and makes them feel safe to actually graze over. So that's why it's green. In the actual ground bait, I'm actually using Dynamite XL micro pellets, and those just sprinkled into your ground bait. You don't need an awful lot, but you'll find there's some extra particles there for the fish to feed on. Hold them in your peg for a lot longer and you'll find they'll be rooting around for ages, searching around for those pellets. So it's quite a simple mix, to be honest with you. I've added them dried straight out of the bag into my mix, and as long as I keep my ground bait reasonably damp, it's going to be a perfect mix all day long.